All right, so this is 11 honors, and we are reading on page 62. Marlowe is in Africa finally, and he's seeing the effect of imperialism in this, what we're calling the company station. It's the outer station. There are people being mistreated, being enslaved. There's waste, there's destruction, and there's a lot of details. So Sierra is going to read.
Where am I starting?
Bottom of the page, instead of going up. He's at the company station. He's going to report in here. He's trying to get to where his destination is.
At bottom of page what?
62 is what I've got.
62. I think we're on 64.
That would be even better. Remember the explosions? Was the top of the page? They were dying slowly, or the bottom?
Yes. I just know I have 63 all highlighted.
Okay, so 64 would be even better.
Okay, so they were dying slowly. It was very clear. They were not enemies, they were not criminals, they were nothing earthly now, nothing but black shadows of disease and starvation, lying confusedly in the greenish gloom, brought from all the recesses of the coast and all the
Legality.
Legality, that too, of time, contracts, lost in uncongenial surroundings, fed on unfamiliar food, they sickened, became inefficient, and they were then allowed to crawl away and rest. These moribund shapes were free as air, and nearly as thin. I began to distinguish the gleam of the eyes under the trees. Then glancing down, I saw a face near my hand. The black bones reclined at full length with one shoulder against the tree, and slowly the eyelids rose and the sunken eyes looked up at me. Enormous and vacant, a kind of blind, white flicker in the depths of the orbs, which died out slowly. The man seemed young, almost a boy, but you know, with them it's hard to tell. I found nothing else to do but to offer him one of my good Swede's Chips biscuits I had in my pocket. The fingers closed slowly on it and held. There was no other movement and no other glance. He had tied a bit of white worsted round his neck. Why? Why did he get it? Was it a badge, an ornament, a charm, a propitiatory act? Was there any idea at all connected with it? It looked startling round his black neck, this bit of white thread from beyond the seas. Near the same tree, two more bundles of acute angles sat with their legs drawn up. One with his chin propped on his knees stared at nothing in an intolerable and appalling manner. His other phantom rested its forehead, as if overcome with a great weariness, and all about others were scattered in every pose of contorted collapse, as in some picture of a massacre or pestilence. While I stood horror-struck, one of these creatures rose to his hands and knees, and went off on all fours towards the river to drink. He lapped out of his hand, then sat up in the sunlight, crossing his shins in front of him, and after a time let his woolly head fall off his breastbone. I didn't want any more loitering in the shade. I made haste towards the station. When near the buildings, I met a white man, in such an unexpected elegance of get-up that in the first moment I took him for a sort of vision. I saw a high starched collar, white cuffs, a light alpaca jacket, snowy trousers, a clear necktie, and varnished boots. No hat, hair parted, brushed and oiled, under a green-lined parcel held in a big white hand. He was amazing, and had a pen holder behind his ear.
Can you just write the word contrast right there? He had just seen these dying black men. Now he sees a well-dressed white man wearing white clothes. So it's just that contrast of right now it appears that Africans are getting the worst of it. He seems to be doing pretty, we'll find that's not the case. The Europeans aren't doing so well either. And, no, you can pick it up, Isabel.
I shook hands with the uncle, and I learned he was the company's chief accountant, and that all the bookkeeping was done at the station. He had come out early, he said, to get a breath of fresh air. The expression sounded wonderfully odd, with a suggestion of sedentary desk work. I wouldn't have mentioned the fellow to you all, only it was from his lips I first heard the name of a man who was so indissolubly connected with the memories of that time.
Okay, underline, I first heard the name of the man. Who is the man?
Kurtz.
Kurtz. We won't see him for many more pages, but he continues to hear about him. This is the first time he's heard the word. We'll find out that Marlowe's job will actually be to go rescue Kurtz. He's headed toward a place on the river where he can get a steamship to carry him to wherever Kurtz is, and then carry Kurtz back. That's going to be the mission.
Is that the answer to 21?
21. What point is Marlowe making of his images of death, impotence, and despair? These are not the right pages, forgive me. But, yeah, we just said that. What is, all that machinery, all those dead people, all the rips in the continent, you know, the loss of trees, the explosions, everything. What is that? What's the point? What did we just say? What is that proving?
That both sides suffer just as much as the other.
And imperialism is what's causing it. Actually, those particular images show how the Africans are suffering. We really haven't seen, except for the ship, the war vessel that was shooting artillery shells into the continent. We haven't seen what it's done to the Europeans yet, much. So that's still to come. Yeah, you can keep reading. Moreover, I respected the fellow.
Moreover, I respected the fellow, yes, I respected his colors, his fast cuts, his brushed hair. His appearance was certainly that of the hairdresser of money, but in the great demoralization of the land, he kept up his appearance. That's backward. His starched collars and wrought-out shirt fronts were achievements of character. He had been out nearly 3 years in the land. I could not help asking him how he managed to sport such linen. He had just the faintest blush and said modestly, "I've been teaching one of the native women about the station." It was difficult. She had a distaste for the work. Thus, this man had barely accomplished something. He was devoted to the books which were an apple pie order. Everything else in the station was in order. Heads, things, buildings, strings of dusty people with splay feet arrived and departed. The stream of manufactured goods, rubbishy cottons, beads, and brass wire set into the depths of darkness, and in return, came a precious trickle of ivory.
Okay, Circle Ivory, that's what the company does. That's the company's major purpose, is to collect ivory and then, or sell it. And what did we say ivory was used for? What's ivory used for? Well, you know what you've heard of ivory, right? Ebony and ivory, Paul McCartney. The piano has the black keys and the white keys. They used to use ivory for keys. They don't anymore. They use plastic.
So they killed elephants.
They would kill but actually they didn't do the killing. They let the natives do the killing. The natives were already collecting ivory. And so all the Belgians had to do was steal it from them. So the Belgians, the Africans already knew it was a valuable item, and so they would kill the elephants, and they just had to dig it up, find it.
Animal abuse.
Yeah, it's another, implied, it never shows that, or you never see that, but it's certainly a part of it. Would you read Delaney?
I had to wait. Is that what you want me to say?
Yeah.
I had to wait in the station for 10 days and returned.
Can I mention waiting is a major theme of the story? Nothing happens quickly.
Yay!
There's always time. It's like he wants to do it now, and he has to wait 10 days, even to get to where he starts his job. He hasn't even started his job yet. So he has to wait some more. He has to wait until he can leave the station.
I lived in a hut in the yard, but to be out of the chaos, I would sometimes get into the accountant's office. It was built of the horizontal planks and so badly put together. As he bent over his desk, he bared from neck to heels with narrow strips of sunlight. There was no need to open the big shutters to see. It was hot there too. Big flies buzzed fiendishly and did not sting the sack. I sat generally on the floor while a faultless appearance and even slightly scented, perching on a high stool, he wrote. Sometimes he stood up for an exercise when he toppled bed with a
Clerical.
Errors.
Clerical errors.
Clerical errors in this climate. One day he remarked without lifting his head, in the interior you will no doubt meet Mr. Kurtz.
Okay, circle it. Every time you see Kurtz's name, circle it, because that's what this book is about. If you miss Kurtz, then you've missed the point of the book.
On my asking Mr. Kurtz was, he said he was a first-class agent, and seeing my disappointment at this information, he added slowly, laying down his pen, he was a very remarkable person. Further questions, how do you say that? How do you say that?
I'm sorry, elicited.
Elicited from him that Mr. Kurtz was at present in charge of trading post, a very important one in the true Ivory country, and at the very bottom of it. Sends in as much ivory as all the others put together. He began to write again. The sick man was too ill to groan, the flies buzzed in a great.
Even the picture of that one agent who's sick, this is starting to see what is the effect of Africa and imperialism on the Europeans. Well, Europeans get sick. The Africans don't get sick. They're used to it. They live there. The Europeans get sick. And then what do we know about Kurtz? What did we learn about Kurtz here?
He brings in the most ivory.
So he's really good at his job. He's a station manager, sort of. He's in charge of the most important station, a trading post. It says he's a first-class agent. He's a very remarkable person. So that's one thing you're going to have to be able to reconcile, how somebody that you will see perhaps him as an evil person, but he's also a remarkable person. Let me read. Suddenly there was a growing murmur of voices and a great trampling of feet. A caravan had come in. A violent babble of uncouth sounds burst out on the other side of the planks. All the carriers were speaking together, and in the midst of the uproar, the lamentable voice of the chief agent was heard giving it up tearfully for the 20th time that day. He rose slowly. What a frightful row, he said. He crossed the room gently to look at the sick man and returned to me. He does not hear. What, dead? I asked. No, not yet, he answered with great composure, then alluding with a toss of his head to the tumult in the station yard. When one has got to make correct entries, one comes to hate these savages, hate them to death. Just kind of underline that. That becomes the attitude. Remember what we said Friday about the Great White Hope? That's not what it is. The white burden, white man's burden. It was, let's bring civilization to disadvantaged people. And yet what happens as they go into these nations to do so? They begin to hate the people. Okay? He remained thoughtful for a moment. When you see Mr. Kurtz, circle his name again. So we won't, there's a little information, and we got to gather it all. Mr. Kurtz, he went on, tell him from me that everything here, he glanced at the desk, is very satisfactory. I don't like to write it. With those messengers of ours, you never know who may get hold of your letter at that central station. He stared at me for a moment with his mild, bulging eyes. Oh, he will go very far, underline it. He will be somebody in the administration before long, underline it. They, above the council in Europe, mean him to be. So here's a guy on the upward move. He's the best agent they have. He's a remarkable person. They think he's going to be in charge of the whole company someday. He turned to his work. The noise outside had ceased. And presently, in going out, I stopped at the door. In the steady buzz of flies, the homeward bound agent was lying flushed and insensible. So this guy is dying in the room that they're talking business in. The other bent over his books was making correct entries of correct transactions. And 50 feet below the stoop, I could see the treetops of the Grove of Death. Next day, I left the station at last with a caravan of 60 men for a 200-mile tramp. Look at Look at number 22. Where does Marlowe have to travel to start his job? He's gotta go 200 miles. He's gotta go to a place called Kinshasa, Kenssasha, Kenssasha, Kinshasa. We had a student here several years ago from the Congo, and she was born in Kinshasa.
What is it?
Kenssasha, Kinshasa. All right, so that's where he has to go to get to his job. Look at number 23. Describe the setting of the company's station. What is being built around it? Notice the contrast between this work of progress and the devastation around it. So what are they building here? This is the same place where they have the other, all the destruction and everything, but what are they building, do you know?
Factories?
A railroad.
Miles.
So you see the mix of construction and destruction. Because although there's construction going on, they're trying to build this railroad, there's just so much destruction around them. Human lives, equipment, the continent. And didn't we talk about the two devils?
Yeah.
Okay, so make sure you answer that one, 24. The devil of laziness versus the devil of greed and violence. All right, so we're done there. So hold on to it. There's more to come. Okay, I don't know if these I don't think these page numbers count, but the questions do. Well, how does Marlowe describe the prisoners? How is Marlowe part of the cause that created their situation? All right, we can answer that one.
We don't have that.
You don't have that? Shouldn't be, is it not on the back?
No.
Do you have anything else?
Mm-mm.
Oh, goodness. Let me get it for you.
This isn't all
You spilled your Diet Coke.
I'm gonna, I don't want to duplicate it, but I'm going to give you this. It's the same, but on the back are the questions for the next, Delaney. Thank you. All right, so how does Marlowe describe the prisoners on page 52? It's the same question, unfortunately, similar, but what are the black men that he sees? What are their conditions?
They're starving.
They're starving, they're dying, they're slaves, they have chains on them. How is Marlowe part of the cause that created their situation? Who does Marlowe work for?
Like the company who's putting all of them in chains.
Exactly. So he's supporting them, even though he's not personally doing any harm. He's actually supporting the evil that the company is doing, the pain and suffering, by being a member of it. He's getting paid by the same company. Number 2, the artificial whole and aimless clutter tells us what things about imperialism. These last few pages have shown us the destruction and clutter and whole explosions. What did we say that tells us about imperialism?
It's evil. Or it's not good, just good for like one side. It's
It's certainly evil, but can we be a little more precise? It hurts other people, but
it brings chaos.
and it's inefficient. It brings chaos and confusion. Now, that's where the idea is that if you're not involved in some positive good or terrible evil, you can't be neutral. You have to be one or the other. You can't be in the middle. So if you're unorganized, there's something kind of wrong about that. It's not just a funny thing. We should try to be organized. And so imperialism is disorganized and chaotic. 3, why did the black workers crawl in the shade?
From the sun.
And to die. How does the dress and appearance of the company accountant contrast to that of the workers? We just said that. How do they differ? And white, literally, the clothes are light or white color. He is a white man. The black men are suffering. And like you say, well-dressed. They are hardly dressed at all, which actually makes more sense in that climate. And what did we learn, number 6, about Marlowe? I mean, about Kurtz?
He's very good at his job.
Yes, he's really good at his job. The best agent they have, the best collector of ivory, someone who's going to make a name for himself.
Where's number 5?
How does the accountant react to the sick man? Remember, they brought the sick man into the office. He's annoyed by him. He doesn't try to help him. And so that's just one example of how imperialism, how Africa is killing the Europeans. It's harming the Europeans who are involved in.
What if we're doing the buzzer games?
Did you make it? No.
All right, so we are on page 67. No use telling you much about that. Would you read that? Now he's leaving. He's got to go 200 miles further to get to where his job actually began.
No use telling you much about that. Paths, paths, everywhere. A stamped-in network of paths spreading over the empty land. Through long grass, through burnt grass, through thickets, down and up chilly ravines, up and down stony hills ablaze with heat, and a solitude, nobody, not a hut. The population had cleared out a long time ago. Well, if a lot of mysterious people armed with all kinds of fearful weapons suddenly took to traveling on the road between Deal and Gravesend, catching the yokels right and left to carry heavy loads for them. I fancy every farm and cottage thereabouts would get empty very soon. Only here the dwellings were gone too. Still I passed through several abandoned villages. There's something pathetically childish in the ruins of grass walls. Day after day, with the stamp and shuffle of 60 pair of bare feet behind me, each pair under 60 pounds load. A 60-pound load. Camp, cook, sleep, strike, camp, march. Now and then a carrier dead in harness, at rest in a long grass near the path, with an empty water gourd and his long staff lying by his side. A great silence around the above. Perhaps on some quiet night the tremor of far-off drums, sinking, swelling, a tremor vast. Faint, a sound weird, appealing, suggestive, and wild, and perhaps with a profound a meaning as the sound of bells in a Christian country. Once a white man in an unbuttoned uniform camping on the path with armed escort of lank
Zanzibaris.
okay, very hospitable and festive, not to say drunk, was looking after the upkeep of the road, he declared. Can't say I saw any road or any upkeep unless the body of a middle-aged Negro with a bullet hole in the forehead, upon which I absolutely stumbled 3 miles farther on, may be considered as a permanent improvement. I had a white companion too, not a bad chap, but rather too fleshy, and with the exhilarating habit of fainting on the hot hillside, miles away from the least bit of shade and water. Annoying, you know, to hold your own coat like a parasol over a man's head while he is coming to. I could not help asking him once what he meant by coming there at all.
Okay, we are going to have to stop. We'll do our best to finish it. Thank you. Now you're down to question number 6. And so would you like to show me right before you put it up? I give you credit for the, I need to see the questions. You got that, you got that. Got that, you got that, you got that. I give you credit for that.
Word won't keep playing.
10:40. Why is it that most every day